Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back with another Raw review. And remember, raw and uncut. Alright, well, Raw tonight was, to me, it was mid. It wasn't that bad or anything like that. I was expecting things to happen, but they didn't. Hopefully things will come because I'm actually looking for the new talent to show up and for them to do something and start some storylines with different people. But we'll see how this goes. But anyway, let's get to it on tonight's show. All right, we have Solo coming out and everything. Solo's coming out and he's saying that, the bloodline, took out Roy's keys on what they did last, week and everything. They kind of took Roy's keys out. Jacob really kind of put the damper on him. And as far as I know, Roy's keys will be out with an injury. So far, they're saying indefinite and stuff. And Solo continues on and saying that he's only here on Raw tonight, to take care of some business. And then Jay's music hits, and Jay comes out and stuff and everything. And Jay's, asking Solo, does he want, you know, um, why does he want to keep putting the family business out there like that to keep the family business out, of the wrestling business from, the fans or whatever the case may be. And then he tells Solo that he needs to fall in line. And Solo said, what do you mean fall in line? And everything. And then he tells Solo he looks like he's falling off. And then says Jay, was on top, especially when he was with, a champ, when he beat Gunther for the title and everything. I think he, in some of his defense matches, I think he defended against AJ Styles and won. So Solo was kind of giving him a little props and everything. And Solo said he's not coming back to the family because he loves where he's at, and he likes what he's doing, and the people support him and stuff, and then the crowd start cheering, Solo, Solo, and everything like that. And then Jay tells Solo, he's where he's at because of the bloodline. And then challenges Solo, to a match, tonight on the show. Then he says if he wins, then, Solo comes, to the bloodline. And then Solo says, okay, so, you know, if they have a match, I mean, he said yes, he'll do the match and everything. But if he wins, he wants the bloodline, to leave him alone forever. And then he tells Jay, you know, here's his warning shot, and he goes pew pew and stuff. Seems like I'm losing my voice. Hopefully, I'm not coming down with one of these stupid colds and stuff. But anyway, and then you got the bloodline with Jacob Fatu, um, Jay Uso, and Jimmy. And Jacob's telling Jay that, it looks like that he's running things on his own and everything. But Jay reminds him that, the OTC sent him out and everything, to do what Jacob couldn't do and stuff. So Jay tells Jacob, he's going to go out to the ring. He's going to do what Jacob couldn't do and stuff. And he's going to beat Solo and bring Solo to the family. Back to the bloodline. And then Jimmy tells Jay, to get the job done. And then we have this match for the number one contender, you know, which is I think is pretty set up pretty stupidly, man. Why would Roman Reigns only want, luchadors and stuff? It just doesn't make any sense why that would be and stuff. But anyway, we'll get that towards the end of the video. I'll speak on that and stuff. But anyway, you get Penta against Laredo Kid. The match was okay. It was pretty fast and stuff, and ultimately Penta wins the match with the Mexican Destroyer and stuff. And then we get the Vision backstage, talking about Tazawa and everything and what Austin Theory is going to do to him and stuff like that And then Braun Breaker kind of breaks off because he got that crazy look in his face and stuff. And he asks Byron Saxton, does he think Obafemi, is the future? Byron says, that's what everybody's talking about. That's what everybody's saying. And Braun Breaker tells him, he says, Byron, yep, that's what I thought you would say because that's what Paul Heyman said. And then we get the match with Austin Theory and Tazawa. It was more of a squash match than anything. I mean, it was crazy. You know, poor Tazawa. And then Braun Breaker, he does what he does. He breaks Tazawa in half and everything. Austin Theory does win the match and everything. Oh man, poor Tazawa. But anyway, after that, Braun Breaker was about to, well, actually, he was about to spear Tazawa before he was going to break him in half. But anyway, Obafemi comes out and everything, and they, kind of have this standoff and stare at each other and stuff. And then you get the officials come out and they kind of break it up and they go about, and no hands were thrown. But anyway, you get Rey Mysterio, he's talking about Kathy and and they're talking about the match that's happening with this luchador number one contenders, to meet Roman Reigns, for a title shot and stuff. I mean, it's crazy. And then Dominic Mysterio, he comes out and he asks Ray why wasn't he, putting the match in, Ray, he told him, said Dominic wasn't worthy and everything. He's, doesn't think he's a little too stupid and stuff like that. But anyway, Dom is pretty pissed off because he couldn't get it. He's not one of the luchadors that are in the match and stuff. And then, Dom is the AAA champion. So, but that's neither here nor there and stuff. And in fact, Stephanie Raquel, that she comes out and everything. She's back from injury. She's ready to get back on the scene to do whatever she has to do to get back into the title shot and everything and stuff because she did get injured and everything. But anyway, she's saying that she likes seeing the Judgment Day running scared, when she's around and stuff. And then she said nobody, can come out and can destroy her or do anything. She says um, tells Roxanne that Roxanne's pretty much dead and everything. And then she tells Raquel Rodreguez that she's not worried about her because she's beaten her plenty of times, in the past. And then out comes Becky Lynch. And Becky says to Stephanie that she, wants to beat Liv up, like she does. And then says that they both have, want to do the same thing, but in a different kind of way for different reasons and stuff. Because she tells Stephanie back here that she wants to Liv because she wants to sell the score, and then she tells Stephanie that she wants to be Liv because she doesn't like Liv and everything, that she hates her and everything. And that Liv is kind of disrespected the title, and she took it back to the early 2000s and everything. And then Becky is saying that she worked too hard to go back, in that direction and everything and stuff, and she doesn't want to see anything go bad. And then she said that you know she tells Stephanie that she doesn't know much about her and everything, but she said the little bit that she does know is that, Stephanie is mysterious and stuff like that, and she made a big impact, on the wrestling business, in the short time that she's been there and everything. And it says, to Stephanie, that's impressive, considering that she's been gone more often than she's been, around wrestling and stuff you know. So basically, what Becky saying is that Liv, when she was champion, she wasn't defending her title. She was more out then end, just like Liv. She had the title for 100 days and everything, and just finally defended the title, at SummerSlam. But anyway, Becky goes on and then says, to Stephanie that she's, not sure if she's a badass or back before her time because she wants to fight and everything, or she's back, and then her body gives up, and stuff, and then her mind, won't tell her to stop and stuff, basically saying that if the Liv come back, just to try to prove a point, but then at that, she's injury bound, so did she come back too early? If she wins, will she be able to defend the title? Or will she have to give the title up? Or she had to take off and everything and not have the title and stuff like that? But anyway, then she tells then she says to Stephanie, the title doesn't need any more bad luck and everything. And she said that she doesn't consider herself lucky, but she does consider herself, good. And then she tells Stephanie, she tells her to do whatever she wants to do to Liv. She can beat Liv up, take her out, or whatever the case may be. She said she'll even get some popcorn and sit back and watch everything that happens. But then she said, but when it comes to the championship matches, that Stephanie, doesn't deserve, a title and stuff and everything. And then says that, then she tells Stephanie that the title, deserves her, meaning Becky Lynch is saying that she needs the title. And then Stephanie gets on the mic and she tells Becky Lynch that she doesn't care about anything that she just said, but she gets in her way that she will show her what La Primera is all about. And then she walks off. Now she walks off. Then Liv Morgan, she comes in and she attacks Becky Lynch. And she starts kicking the crap out of Becky Lynch, but Becky Lynch kind of gets that, gets up on her and everything. And Liv leaves the ring. And then now you have the standoff between Stephanie Bakira and Becky Lynch. And then we get LA Knight speaking to Kathy Kelly and stuff. She's asking him, what does he stand with the situation as far as, I guess the bloodline is still concerned and stuff, And it's just crazy on how long this is gonna linger on and stuff. And then, LA is, basically saying that, he's a fraud, that Roman is a fraud and stuff, and that he's afraid, to face LA Knight, to put the title up, against him. And then Solo comes out, and Solo in LA, they start talking. LA tells Solo, you know, because Solo was asking LA, kind of to watch his back, whatever the case may be, because he does have the match tonight with Jey Uso and stuff. And then LA Knight was telling Solo, hey, look, what happened to me at SummerSlam, that was just a one-time thing. He's doing this thing on his own and stuff, and that, he don't care nothing about all that and stuff, and then Solo said, well, look, this is my warning to you and stuff, because if he loses, that the, bloodline is going to be coming, after LA Knight and stuff, and so Solo said he was warning him and stuff, so, and then they walked off like that, and then we get the match with Dom Mysterio and Dragon Lee and stuff. And this was, no match that was just just a match that was just put together and everything. It means nothing, and stuff. So, but anyway, Dragon Lee ends up winning the match. And then after the match was over, Big Cass, just like he did with Javon Evans, he came in there and he just destroyed Dragon Lee and stuff. And then out comes Javon Evans. Javon Evans was kind of getting up on Big Cass, but then Big Cass laid him out and stuff. So he beat him down. He beat Javon Evans down again, and he stands strong. And then we got Brian and Soruka. They're talking, about the tag match that's coming up with Soruka. That she has a mystery partner going against Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez and stuff. And then Danhausen comes out and he said that he'll be Soruka's partner, for some money and stuff like that. And Soruka said, nah, and everything. She's got it all taken care of. She has a partner and stuff like that. She doesn't need him and anything like that. And then she walks off. Then Madam Pierce and LA Knight, they're talking, and Adam tells, LA Knight is calling, Roman Reigns a fraud and everything, and that he's running away from LA Knight and stuff like that. And then why is he not in, the tournament, to face Roman Reigns and stuff. And then Adam Pierce, it was said that, the match is a luchador match and everything. So Adam Pierce did tell him, though, he did say to LA Knight, that after, this tournament is over with and stuff like that, or whatever the case may be, that he would ensure that LA Knight would become, a contender again, for the title. So we'll see what happens as the time goes by, because LA Knight, he's been chasing that title forever, and I don't think he's ever going to get it and stuff. If you agree or disagree, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment, and let me know. Then we got Jacob, Fatu talking, to LA Knight. And Jacob is telling LA Knight that he doesn't get it. You know, his mouth, is about to get him in some trouble and everything, talking about the bloodline and speaking about, on the OTC and everything. But then LA Knight does remind Jacob Fatu that the OTC did tell him that he was off limits to them guys and stuff. And then Jacob was talking about if Roman gives him the green light. And LA Knight said, well, go tell Roman, and everything. Go get the permission slip to do something. And then Jacob tells him, you know, um, that he's going to dog walk, LA Knight one day and stuff. But then we get this tag match where Raquel Rodriguez, Roxanne Perez against Soruka, and the mystery partner being Io Sky. The match was okay. It was kind of pretty decent and stuff, but ends up winning with a soul snatcher on Roxanne Perez and everything, and Soruka and Io Sky wins the match. Now, this is just telling me, Roxanne is done. She's cooked. She hasn't won a match or done anything, So it's looking like that the maybe the Judgment Day might get Roxanne out. Maybe they might do something with a little bit of, with Roxanne, which might kind of put her up a little bit because her leaving NXT, she was pretty decent. She had a few matches at the beginning looking pretty decent, and then now they just made her a jobber. It's just crazy. And then they're talking about she's the prodigy. The prodigy of what? Okay, and then we got Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman. And Braun Breaker is asking Paul Heyman, does he think Obafemi, you know, is the future and stuff? And Paul says, you know, um, he respects Oba, because he did do what he did with Brock. He beat Brock and everything, something that he wasn't expecting anybody to do, and he's going to respect Oba until, Braun Breaker, shows him, you know, that he can take out Oba and everything and get his respect back and stuff, But in the meantime, as Braun Breaker's asking him about Obafemi, you know, um, Paul says that it looks like that's a question for Braun Breaker to answer because he's too worried about Obafemi. He needs him. He needs the doggone ticket to where he can figure out and stop being in his brain. Is asking himself, can he be Obafemi and can he be the future and stuff? But we'll see what happens and stuff because we all know it's coming. Um, yeah, it's coming. Obafemi and Braun Breaker is gonna be one. I don't expect Braun Breaker to beat Obafemi, you know, and stuff. And then we get Lara Valkyria. She's talking to Ruka, and I don't get what this thing with Lara Valkyria. She's just gone into the darkness. You know, it's I just gotta wait to see what happens here. I don't even know how to explain this. Because Lara Valkyria is talking, saying that Soruka, skipping line and that she doesn't deserve, a shot at the U.S. title and everything. And the IC title, because Lara Valkyria is the one who won the inaugural title and everything like that. But I think Soruka now should be trying to get out of the mid card era and go for a title and stuff. Now that I don't know. We got to see what happens here and stuff. But I think Soruka, she's done. I don't think they're gonna elevate her anymore. Hopefully things get better for her. And then we get the match with Jey Uso and Solo Sikoa. The match was going. It was pretty decent and stuff like that. I mean, I can say they did their thing and stuff. I kind of wish it was a match to where anything goes and stuff, but that would mean the whole bloodline would be coming down. But anyway, Jimmy comes down, to the ring and everything. But he does get involved, but he doesn't get involved. I mean, the match went. Jey Uso, ends up, with the frog splash. I mean, spear, frog splash, and everything. And he ends Solo Sikoa, and Jay wins, and now Solo has to go and report to. He has to report to Roman Reigns, the OTC, and stuff. So it's going to be interesting now and everything. What happens, with Solo when he gets there next week, because Roman Reigns is supposed to come to Raw next week to, do some business. And now that Jay did beat Solo, and Solo is with the Bloodline, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that and stuff, because Solo did say he was not going to join him, but then he lost. But anyway, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment. Let me know how you feel. Let me know how I'm doing and stuff like that and everything. I am kind of losing my voice, so sorry for that. But anyway, I thank you for watching. God bless. Deuces, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.